Hey, it's Dr. Karen Can. Welcome to another edition of the Spiritual Medicine Digest. And I'm recording this on July 30th, 2020. And I want to backtrack a little bit to the beginning of the year, January 2020, where I talked about vision. 2020, right? Vision. A lot of some symbolism there. So I talked about the importance of focusing on our vision of our ideal reality, our ideal future, and that a lot of things were going to become more clear, in this year. And I think that now that it's more than halfway, through 2020, we can see the results of that to some extent. Now, at the same time I'm talking about focusing on your ideal reality, we also see in our current reality a lot of things that we do not like. And it's very tempting to put all of our focus in the now onto that current reality. But here's the thing, if you talk about quantum physics, law of attraction, whatever terminology you want to use, our frequency and vibration right now is being reflected back to us. Anything that we see is something that we have co-created with each other, all of our frequencies and vibrations together. So what we see in the now has been manifested from our frequencies in the past. So the higher quality of the frequency that you're emanating from your body, from your mind, from your consciousness, the higher or quote unquote better result that we get in the future. So if we focus all of our energies in the now on what we don't want and are arguing with each other, and not focusing our energies on our future reality, at least in some degree, then we get more of what we don't want, unfortunately. Okay, so if you're like, hey, how do I do that? How do I manifest a future reality that I really desire, that where we're peaceful and happy and joyful and everyone's, laughing and hugging and kissing and we don't have to worry about masks or viruses or anything like that? I'm like, well, see it in your mind. Vision, right? See it in your mind. And then the next step is perceive it in all your body. So you're going to embody that you are there already. So pick a scene, any scene from your future reality. Okay, so if I'm going to pick a scene, I'm going to pick a scene where I'm, let's see, I'm going to go to Hawaii. So I'm in Hawaii and there's kids on the beach running around and people laughing and playing and playing volleyball. It's beautiful. It's warm out. People are happy and joyful. They're relaxing, that kind of thing, right? So I'm going to feel what it feels like to be there with the sun and the breeze and the water on my feet and the squishiness on the sand on my toes, right? So I'm embodying that. So I'm perceiving the future through my body. And that's how we seed the creative force to produce our future reality. Here's the thing though, is so much of our current reality is so distracting. How much time do we really spend focusing on the future reality? The good news is you don't have to spend a huge amount of time to manifest the future reality. What you do need to do though is to be able to embody in that state for a certain degree of time. And it could be 1 to 3 to 5 minutes a day. Okay. In that future reality, ideally first thing in the morning, before you wake up, and ideally before you go to bed. If you're in that space, you're vibrating your body and basically like a beacon for the universe to match that frequency. Oh, that's what you want. Got it. Right. So even though we may not be thinking about that most of our day, we have that 1 to 3 to 5 minutes each day that we're vibrating at our future reality. Eventually the universe gets the hint. Yeah, we're serious. That really is the reality we want. And here's the cool thing. During the day, if you just go into stillness, you will auto vibrate, if you will. If you're fully in stillness in yourself, in your body, fully embodied, you will actually help to promote that future reality without even actually doing the exercise. And that's my experience, which is very amazing. And signs and synchronicities are abounding, if that's the word, are expanding, increasing in frequency. There we go. As I practice this myself. So is this hard? No, it's actually very, very simple. Is it easy? Easy kind of depends, like most of us are not disciplined in some things that we're not used to doing, right? You're disciplined, hopefully, in brushing your teeth or bathing, things like that. But we're not disciplined in things we're not taught to be disciplined in, like clearing our auric fields, doing transformational telepathy with our loved ones. I mean, there's all these things that we're never taught to do. But here I am, I'm sharing with you my experience, so you can try it for yourself and see how it works for you. So our vision of our future reality, 1 to 3 to 5 minutes a day, maybe even 1 minute twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. Pick a different scene. Like I picked Hawaii. Maybe you can pick a park. Maybe you can pick a family dinner, or get together, or a wedding, or whatever it is, right? Pick different scenes. Feel it in your body, and then you're literally seeding that creative force. Like, this is my future reality. Get my, here is the ticket to my future show. Make it happen, right? Kind of like your magic wand. And then during the day, you're going to stillness, just dipping in, just seconds at a time. And how I do it is through stillness. The stillness I talk about is stillness on the fly, meaning that I can do while I'm being. And you can actually get a free meditation on how to do that at stillnessonthefly.com. Stillnessonthefly.com. There you go. Stillnessonthefly.com. And there's a little, 30-minute class about how to do that. So when you get really good at it, you can just, seconds at a time, just pop in, pop out, pop in, pop out. And as you pop into that place of stillness, which is basically you embodying fully, and you can feel your body and the energy running in your body. That's all it is. Okay, it's not rocket science, right? Again, teach it to a 4-year-old. Then you amplify and support that which you have asked for in your other vision, if you will, that vision of your future reality. So that's the mechanics of what we can do. So now let's go and talk a little bit about in our current reality, what we're perceiving. Okay, so what we focus and perceive and how we perceive our reality also has an impact on the future that we create or co-create together. So let's talk about the various angles or perceptions that there are. So I'm going to use a camera and a microscope analogy. So in the camera analogy, we have a zoom lens, right? That can see, like, something that's far away. You can zoom up, right? Or magnify, right? So you can actually, there's a special lens that you can use on a DSLR camera that can be really, really focused and accurate. Really, when you're looking at really small things, like a little ladybug on a flower, for example, and take a beautiful crystal clear picture. And then you have the wide angle lens, right? Which you would not use to take a picture of the ladybug, right? That might be for a landscape photo. Or like you've got a big wedding, you've got like 50 people or something, right? Like a wide lens, right? So the microscope analogy, we have the microscopic, okay, where we see tiny, tiny things that we can't see with our naked eye, and we're looking really, really detailed in this one little spot, right? But when you're looking here, you can't really see what's out here, right? And then we've got the macroscopic view, which is you see everything, the totality of it. These are big picture perceptions. Okay, so let's take a real life example. So let's talk about COVID, masks, etc. Okay, because that's a perfect example to talk about the microscopic and the macroscopic, and then so you can have some sort of examples of how people will perceive things. And I would advise you not to jump into judgment. Okay, even during this video, but just be open and curious. And I'm just going to share with you the different perspectives. As an empathetic person or empath type of person, I can feel into other people's perspectives. Is very, very helpful, and it's helpful for compassion as well, although sometimes it can be challenging because I can feel other people's hurt, and sometimes I get angry, because I can feel their hurt, right? And that happened this week. I'll talk about it anyway, if we have time, I'll talk about it. So on the microscopic, let's take masks. So the one perspective is like, hey, coronavirus particles are so small. It's like, it's like throwing sand at a chain link fence. Like, so much is going to get through. Like, why are you bothering mandating masks? It doesn't make any scientific sense at all, right? There's that one perspective, right? And I'm like, well, that's true. The virus is really small, and can virus particles go through any sort of mask, especially the cloth ones that we, carry around and make? Yeah, of course. Right? Okay, let's go a little bit, still microscopic, but we're going to go a little bit higher, tiny bit higher. And then there's a perspective, well, wait a second. Viruses aren't just floating around on their own necessarily. They're attached to respiratory droplets. and from your nose and your mouth. And these respiratory droplets are big enough for some of these to be blocked by masks. So why not use a mask, right, to block the respiratory droplets so that you're not infecting other people if you happen to have COVID-19 and it is, attached to these respiratory droplets. So in that way, you think, well, the science kind of makes sense too, right? Okay, so let's go a little further out. So it's still microscopic, but a little further out. And then we'll say, well, what kind of studies are there on masks? Well, surgeons use masks, right? I mean, that, if they're using it, why don't we use it? Right? Obviously they're using it. So why don't we use it? And also, if you take a look at, in the winter, if you're in a place that's not warm all the time, in the winter, when you breathe out, you can see steam, right, from your breath, and it goes out however far. Wow, it seems like a really far distance. So yeah, wearing masks makes sense, right? Like, doesn't it make sense? Like, you don't want to infect other people or get potentially, get their infections. So if we then go to a slightly different perspective, similar, we're still on the microscopic here, believe it or not. Okay, and then I say, well, let's look at some of the studies, on masks. Well, there's an interesting study that shows the distance that the vapor, if you will, goes, and it's I believe 0.6 meters. Yeah, it was in meters. So 0.6 meters. So that is about 3/4 of a yard, maybe, or almost a yard. Yeah, I think it's about, so meters and yards. Okay, so what is that? Yeah, almost a yard, right? I'm trying to convert it in my mind. And here's what's really interesting, though. If you breathe, they got people to sneeze and cough, right? And what's very interesting is that, surprisingly, now this is an induced sneeze, by the way, obviously, because it's an experiment. So for these volunteers, they induced a sneeze. Okay, and to their surprise, the kind of that distance wasn't a huge difference between a cough and sneeze, which was really interesting. And what they did was very interesting as well, is they tracked the trajectory and angle of the respiratory droplets that came out. So for a cough, okay, so someone's coughing through their mouth, right? It went mostly horizontal. Right? So if I'm in the grocery store and I'm coughing at someone, my head is up and I'm coughing at someone, if they are within a meter, okay, so that's about we'll say 3 feet, okay, 3 to 4 feet, then potentially they could get splattered with some of that cough respiratory droplet. But interestingly, when they're just breathing through their nose, okay, the angle was like at 60 degrees down here. So even though it was 0.6 meters approximately, this way, if you're facing someone here, in order for you to infect them effectively, if you really wanted to do that, would be you'd have to walk around like this, breathing through your nose, and go, I can't even do it. Okay, because the angle is such that someone's standing right here in front of you is pretty darn safe. Okay, wait, where's the camera? Here. Yeah. All right, because the angle is going down, it's not going to reach their nose or mouth or eyes, for that matter. So that's pretty interesting. So you might see a meme going around that has, oh my gosh, the water vapor is so big, look how big it is, right? Well, guess what? If you go like this in the winter, yeah, it's going to go further. For sure. But I don't think most people are doing that. No. But then, okay, so let's look at another perspective. So then on the perspective, again, still microscopic. Yeah, we're still in the microscopic. Is that people are like, I can't wear a mask because it suffocates me. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, they're feeling air hunger. And why do they feel air hunger? Well, it's because they are, the carbon dioxide is increased. And that's not really questioned, right? That's not necessarily, questioned that there's more carbon dioxide that you're rebreathing in. Okay, that makes sense, right? I mean, that's not really questioned as part of the science. And they said, well, I've got an oxygen saturation meter on my finger, and it's showing that my oxygen saturation went down several points. That's really bad. There's less oxygen, right? And so it looks bad. It looks bad, right? People with asthma, they can't breathe, they feel suffocated, not to mention the panic attack people. Like, I get that, right? But we're just talking about physiologically for now. So the perspective is like, well, we shouldn't mandate masks because, people could get really sick. Some people could pass out, which is true. And depending what mask you use as well. Certain masks are fitted for the person. Fitted meaning they have to be fit. And go through a test when at work, if they have to wear a mask at work, special type of mask, where they have it fitted so that they exercise them to some extent to make sure they don't drop dead, right? I mean, not drop dead, so they won't get knocked out or whatever, right? But we don't do that. However, I'm going to, it makes sense, okay, maybe it's not good for everyone. However, let's look at another perspective. Well, is hypercapnia or high carbon dioxide levels really bad for you? No, not necessarily. Why? Okay, when you have high carbon dioxide levels, that does trigger an air hunger response. And what happens is that through the Bohr effect, the oxygen that's attached to your hemoglobin, your blood cells, actually detaches from your blood to go to your tissues. So your tissues get better oxygenated to some extent when you are hypercapnic, when you have higher carbon dioxide levels. Now, Patrick McKeown, who is an expert at the Buteyko breathing method and wrote the book, The Oxygen Advantage and Close Your Mouth, talks about the proper way to breathe. And he has helped people cure themselves of asthma, of sleep apnea, and all sorts of breathing issues. And what he teaches them to do, with many different exercises, is breathe only through the nose, in and out through the nose. Why? Because we actually overbreathe. Yeah, we overbreathe. I know I do it because I talk a lot. All right, we overbreathe. When our mouth is open, okay, and air is going in and out, we overbreathe. The carbon dioxide level goes way lower than it needs to go. And guess what? The oxygen does not come off the hemoglobin to serve our tissues as easily. So just because you're breathless does not mean that you are not getting enough oxygen. That's my point. Now, can you do this overnight and be an expert at nose breathing? Probably not. So you do need to train. I highly recommend you read his books and look at his blog at buteykoclinic.com. Some great, great exercise and a whole master class on how to breathe through mask. Okay, so watch that. But what's really interesting is if you do learn to breathe through your nose and you do learn to breathe properly, you will not only tolerate hypercapnia better, you will actually help your body oxygenate better, and it will help support all sorts of functions in your body. So it's a healthy way to breathe. So if you're like, I can't use a mask, whatever, but you need to because you need to go shopping, whatever, hey, learn Buteyko breathing, right? So there's one other perspective. So it looks bad that, masks are gonna, yes, people have, dropped and hit their heads and whatever, but it's not necessarily bad per se. Okay, so now we've done tons of microscopic, right? So let's expand a little bit bigger. So we're talking about masks and social distancing. Now, if we go bigger, we go outside just this little space, okay, of our bodies, or even oxygenation of our bodies. We go to, well, what else besides the body? Well, what else is there? Well, besides physical, what else is there? There's mental, there's emotional, there's spiritual health, relationship health, social health, right? So let's talk about mental health. So mental health. So what does the mask symbolize mentally to some people? It could mean I'm being gagged. I'm being gagged. I can't talk. I'm not allowed to talk. I'm not allowed to speak. So in a greater spectrum, that could be very harmful to someone because this is subconscious. It's not they go around saying that to themselves, but the mask symbolizes some of that. The other thing, emotionally, it can symbolize is I am not safe. those beliefs. I am not safe. The world is not safe. My neighbor is not safe. Being with my loved ones is not safe, right? All these beliefs and thought forms can be perpetuated and infective to each other. So not just negative mental thought forms, but emotional energies as well. The emotions of fear and panic and mistrust. And I'm not the feeling of fear when a person is not safe, or that feeling of not being able to trust, or the feeling of anger if they see someone without a mask, or even the opposite, seeing a whole bunch of people in masks and them being angry that they're being mandated to wear something that they feel is completely useless. Okay, so there's all this emotional effects, negative emotional effects of, this whole scenario we're talking about masks right now. Just as an example. And then we got mental, we got emotional, energetic. Well, energetic's a little bit harder to explain, to the average person. But the global energetics, and it has to do with social as well, is that the social distancing. On the one hand, we are not physically close to another person, so their energetics may not affect us as much. But on the other hand, there are a lot of positive energetic exchanges between people, and I'm not talking necessarily just emotional, but energetic exchanges between people that cannot happen while we are socially distanced. However, we have Zoom, we have all that kind of stuff, right? It's not the same. It's not the same. So there's an energetic shift and disturbance. And speaking of energetics, a lot of people have noticed that 5G towers have gone up despite in great numbers all around the world, despite the lockdown order, because apparently that's considered necessary, something like essential services. Anyway, your guess is as good as mine. So 5G towers have gone up, and it's very easy to do that when people are around and they can't argue and see it and all that kind of stuff, theoretically, right? That's one perspective, right? So energetically, that can be disharmonious to the energetic body, that increased radiation, and a lot of doctors and scientists are definitely very, very concerned about people, especially people that are currently in the 5G area and some of the illnesses that they're getting and things like that. Now, is it possible to mitigate that? I believe so. I think that humans can evolve their energy system to be able to do that, but it's going to take some work and knowledge and understanding of how to do that. And guess what? Stillness. I could keep going back to stillness, don't I? Yeah. So we don't have time to discuss that. That's like a whole, bunch of master classes. However, I believe it is possible. And socially, and this does make me sad when I think about it, is the people in nursing homes or in hospitals, the people in hospitals that are dying alone. They don't have an advocate. If they're loved ones, they're not allowed to see them. In the quote-unquote old folks home, not allowed to see their grandchildren, all that kind of stuff. That is very, very sad. And that isolation, there's an increase in suicide hotline, calls, supposedly increase in domestic violence or child abuse due to the emotional effects of the lockdown and social distancing and things like that. So again, we're expanded to a more macroscopic view of what it does for us as a human society. And let's go even bigger. Let's go to environmental. So what are the environmental impacts of it? Now, there was some good because we had less factories going on, and then the air was kind of cleaning up, which is kind of cool. Unfortunately, there are thousands of used masks that have been strewn all over the place, sometimes in the garbage, but a lot of times not. And that is definitely, painful, especially for those of us that help protect Mother Earth, that we can just disregard our own home that way. Because without Earth, we don't have a life, So this solution is not a holistic solution that takes into account all of the macroscopic of everything, right? So you might go, even if it did mass work and it decreased the incidence rate of COVID, which people argue that it's not, because the lockdown is, easing out in a lot of places, and they're increasing cases of COVID, which then somebody could argue, well, yeah, because you're testing more and people are getting tested every week, right? And we should be looking at death rates, and the death rates are plummeting all across the world. Even in places where they didn't have lockdown. So when we look at the bigger picture, then we can start to kind of connect the dots and go, well, wait a second, how is this really working if we are getting smaller and smaller deaths from COVID, but higher and higher deaths for other things? But actually, flu's pretty good this year, because we were locked down, yeah. Or they didn't count it, one or the other. But then what about all the depression and anxiety and, all this kind of stuff and the fear, and then, and the economics, right? The economics. Yes, so people losing their jobs and not being able to work. But then there's some, stipends that people are getting. Some people call it hush money. And so you can go back and forth, to all these. But I think at the end of the day, and I'm a big picture person, you may not be, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, when I look at holistically what's going on, the solution that is presented through mainstream media is not a holistic solution. But of course, I'm a holistically minded doctor, an MD, and, that's how I'm going to think. But at least the one thing we have, is choice. And you're like, what? Dr. K, you just told us mandatory mass vaccinations could happen. Oh my God, right? Hear me out. Choice is the key word for this week. You may or may not have a choice in the outer world right now of the things that you wish you had choice of, whether that be going back to school, whether that be having your job back, whether that be going to a restaurant without a whole bunch of masks and, tape and plastic all over the place, You have a choice to help or not help us manifest that utopian future that we say we desire. And that choice is to manage your state of being. You have a choice. Now, I did say I was going to get back to this, and so I'm not going to share with you. Yesterday, I made the choice that I was going to be okay with my humanness and get a little upset. Get a little mad, get a little upset. And why was I upset? Well, there was a video from America's Frontline Doctors. There were a bunch of doctors talking about their experiences and helping patients recover from COVID-19 using azithromycin, zinc, and 200 milligrams of hydroxychloroquine twice a day. And then they could prevent it, COVID-19, by using hydroxychloroquine 200 milligrams twice a week. And I thought, this is such great news. I mean, I'm not a conventional doctor. Oh, I am, but trained, but I'm not, I can help other people through their immune systems other different ways aside from medication. But I was like, hey, that's really cool. My conventional doctor friends are, colleagues are actually speaking up on their experience. And oh my gosh, we should be celebrating. This is such great news. 0 deaths, using this protocol. And, I did get slightly miffed that there were 2 studies, one in the Lancet and one in the New England Journal of Medicine, which were retracted apparently for fake data or something like that, which they talked about. But, I wasn't so emotional about that. I was just more overjoyed about that. So where did the anger come in? Well, the anger came in because I posted it saying, hey, this is great news, guys, right? And it was quickly censored. And I was like, wait a second. These are doctors, like my colleagues, talking about their experience. Yes, Dr. Emanuel is fairly colorful, okay? She's probably a little bit more combative than I would prefer, as far as, but I know what that's like, okay? But it's cultural. There's some of that cultural stuff there. And she's colorful. But they did a whole smear campaign about her. And basically, because they did the smear campaign about her, then the idea was, well, don't even bother watching this video because It is so FOS, full of shit. This woman talks about demons and blah, blah, blah. So wait a second. So that automatically means that every other doctor that talked on that is full of shit too? How does that work? Right? And, one thing that did break my kind of, moodiness, now it wasn't very long, and I'm talking about probably less than half an hour. So I allowed myself that frustration, momentarily. I'm like, yes, I'm human and I'm doing this frustration thing at the moment, and I'm just going to experience it for a moment. But there was one of my Facebook friends who's a former figure skater coach, Trina. She says, hey, I know Dr. Simone Gold personally, and she is like a real doctor, and she is, real. Like, hey, listen to her. Listen to what she has to say. And I was like, cool, awesome. But I had some other Facebook friends that are like, oh yeah, this is, this person's a wacko. Dr. Mann's a wacko, meaning don't even watch the video. I had a loved one say, this video's on Breitbart. Breitbart is far right, so I'm not going to watch that. And I was like, it is? I don't even know. Like, I don't even know left, right, purple, up, down, inside out. I don't really care. What I was really listening to was the good news that they were talking about, right? And then I did let myself get frustrated when I found out that, that thanks to, I guess, this video, and other studies that are coming out, that they are restricting or have been restricting hydroxychloroquine in many states here in the U.S., even though it's over the counter, even though it's, had chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine have cumulative over 60 years of use in medicine. It's a very old drug. Aspirin has side effects. All drugs have potential side effects, especially if you give people toxic doses in the study, it's going to have toxic effects. But in used in regular doses, I'm not a big drug person because I'm a holistic doctor, but it's relatively safe. We've had so much data on it, and doctors use medications off-label all the time. Like, we use like SSRIs like Paxil and Prozac and stuff, for like, PMS. Like, a long time ago, before they actually had a single study on it, right? And we use these medications on children, even though, well, less on children now because people actually, like, killed themselves and were homicidal on it. But, what I'm saying is we used it off-label before it was approved, FDA approved for that diagnosis, right? So doctors use stuff off-label all the time. Like, amitriptyline. Perfect example. Amitriptyline, Elavil, here in America, is used for fibromyalgia. Well, at the time that I had fibromyalgia, and I did actually write myself a prescription for it, and after one day I said, forget this, I can hardly function. I was like, I'm a doctor, I can't even think, right? So I'm like, oh my God, I put my patients through that by prescribing this stuff. Anyway, so amitriptyline is an old drug, not very safe actually, but an old drug for depression, but used for fibromyalgia, for pain relief, where there is some, in a very, very short study, showed that there was some improvement in pain relief. But did they actually have a study, a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, to say that in fibromyalgia, that it absolutely works? No, we were using it off-label to some degree. Because it wasn't approved, sorry, there was a study that it says it's helping, but it was not approved by the FDA as a treatment for fibromyalgia per se. Okay, they didn't go back, it wasn't even, it was generic by that point, right? So who's going to pay for a study? It's generic, right? Who's going to pay for a study? No drug company's going to pay for a study like that. But we were using it off-label because we found for some people it did work. For my patients, not so much. But, obviously in the field, people were still using and are still using it to some degree for fibromyalgia. It's off-label use. It is not FDA approved for that. So we do this all the time. So I did allow myself to get a little angry and upset with the restriction of a relatively safe drug. And I was thinking, there is no reason to restrict this drug from doctors prescribing it. And there's no reason to force pharmacists to restrict doctors with their individual patients from prescribing it if they feel it's for that patient's highest and greatest good, right? So now they're taking power away from my colleagues who are saving lives. And that did piss me off. Also because I remembered that Dr. Thomas Buzinski, who is the cancer doctor in Texas, that helps people heal from really, really, really like deadly brain cancers and stuff. And some of these children that he's, helped with this anti-neoplastin therapy are still alive today. It's amazing. So that's a very deadly cancers. Some of these, brain cancers are very deadly. And he's been trying to get FDA approval since the 70s. And the Texas Medical Board keeps trying to strip his license, but they can't do it. There's no legal reason to do it, but they keep bringing him to court to hopefully bankrupt him so that he'll stop, curing people of cancer, if you want to use cure or remission of cancer. And here's the thing is that he finally did get study approval, right? NIH said, oh, we'll do your study after what, 3 decades, right? And guess what? They didn't use his protocol. They used their own protocol. They used the wrong dose. They used the wrong time. They used the wrong patients. Oh, it doesn't work. Wow, that pissed me off when I first saw that on the documentary. So it does not surprise me at all that they, in one of the studies that says chloroquine is toxic, doesn't work, blah, 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 that they use 2,400 milligrams, where normally we use 2 to 400. Yeah, so they use 10 times the dose of that. So there's definitely efforts to make sure that people are scared of it. And anytime somebody's trying to make you scared of something, I would say be very suspicious. So I allowed myself that time to be angry and upset for a short period of time. And then I said, okay, I'm done. Time to raise my vibration back to me, right? Been there, done that, did that human thing. So I chose to manage my state. Now I chose to also have a little help. So I used one of my LifeWave patches, an Eon patch. I put it on Governor Vessel 20 acupuncture point up here. If you have X39 stem cell patch or the Eon stress patch, you can put it on this point, and that helps to solidify or activate this point to help the mood, which is a mood lifting kind of effect from this acupuncture point. So that really did help as well. So literally the rest of the day, I think my husband wasn't feeling so good because of all the stuff going on, but he was in his own separate world, kind of not feeling good, and I was in my world going, I feel pretty good, and so it wasn't like Pollyanna, but I was able to vibrate at my frequency and get things done and feel hope, that hopefulness of the future and things like that. It was super, super cool. So that's what I'm telling you is you can choose your state of being. You can also choose to be angry for a while and go ahead, choose it. Do it for 5, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever serves you, right? When you're done, choose to go back into your state of being and vibrating at that place, because in this place, in our future reality of utopia, if you will, is closer and closer to our reality. What else can you choose? Well, you can choose what you focus on. You can choose how you perceive things, and I would say focus on a perception that works for you. If it's different from mine, that is okay. But whatever works for you, whatever gets you feeling healthier, happier, more joyful, more peaceful, hey, use that perspective. Who am I to dictate what your perspective should be? So you have that choice. No one can take that away from you. They can't take your choice of being. They can't take away your choice of perception. And then the third choice you can make is compassion. Compassion for others, but also self-compassion especially. I mean, I definitely had to practice that because I got moody and I know that my vibration is important. But I was like, I'm self-compassionate. I make mistakes too. I post stuff on Facebook that isn't true because I'm just like not thinking, not muscle testing, and, and I get wrapped up in other people's emotions, which is very easy to do as an empath type of person, a highly sensitive person, very easy to do. I don't get centered. If I don't go back to a state of being, I can make mistakes too. So I need that self-compassion as well. And I implore you to be also self-compassionate. So just as a review for everything I've said, number 1 is 2020 is all about the vision and perception, right? And you can choose to perceive things on the microscopic scale. And I'm sure you'll find all sorts of data for that, proving or disproving whatever it is you want to prove or disprove. But if you expand to the bigger wide angle lens, right, or the macroscopic view, things look very different from this place. And this is where I tend to perceive from. And that's why I make the decisions and say what I say, because of this view. But we can have compassion for others that have this view or anything in between. And sometimes we do need to go into this view. Like I know with Topican healing, sometimes we go into great detail about a certain thing because it works, right? But at the end of the day, I like to expand to the bigger picture because I believe that you, me, the environment, the world, everything has an effect on everything else. They call it the butterfly effect. Yeah, so vision 2020, you have choice. You can choose your state of being, you can choose your perception, and you can choose self-compassion and compassion for others. So that's the Spiritual Medicine Digest for this week. And as an announcement, on Monday's show, Ask the LifeWave Doctors on Light Warrior Radio, I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Dennis Lobstein. We meet every month on the first Monday of the month. And we're going to talk about phototherapy patching protocols to help you feel more calm when there is chaos. And I think this is going to be very, very helpful. I just showed you one of my quick and dirty protocols, which is just to put a patch on top of GB20. I call it the happy point. And even if you're not an acupuncturist and you can't needle that point, you can put a phototherapy patch there, such as X39 or Eon. But we are going to get into much more detail and more complex and robust protocols on Monday's show on Light Warrior Radio, how to stay calm in the face of chaos and use LifeWave phototherapy patches to help you. So it's going to be 12 noon Eastern. I'll put the link somewhere near this video. You can call in as well to ask a question if you want specific LifeWave patching protocols for whatever you're going through. And then we'll also have the chat so you can ask questions there as well. And I look forward to seeing you on Monday for the show. In the meantime, stay well.